Welcome to EnVision Center News, where we discuss community impact and involvement with today's nonprofit leaders and philanthropists.
Amy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Excited to talk about the work that you do within the community. But first, let's just start with you. Can you tell me a little bit about your background, your origin story, if you will?
Oh, wow. I thought we only had like an hour. we can roll with that. I grew up in Sandpoint. So my family, we're back to the landers from California, like many, in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
And so I grew up off-grid here, peeling logs, being a homeschooled. I joke that I'm a homeschooled high school dropout. And up on Gold Hill. So I grew up there with my family. My mom was a midwife and my dad was a carpenter. And then as a young adult, I moved to Europe and spent much of my adult life over there. And
you just kind of decided you wanted to go to Europe, or did something?
There's always an impetus that usually has to do with poor choices.
Were you just trying to find yourself?
Uninteresting men, the usual. No, I had a German partner at that time.
Okay.
So I started in Germany, and I spent a lot of time there, and I did my master's in business while I was there. And then I moved around a little bit more. Ireland and India, somewhere in there. I had a child, and then I went through like the debacle of divorce, and thought, where do I want to raise my kid now at this point? And so I came back to Sandpoint, largely because I knew the community, and I am a nature lover, an adventure lover, and it was like, how do I manage being a single parent, raising money, right? I gotta feed us both now, and still be able to go outside and seek my medicine, which has always been in the mountains. And so I came back in 2012, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, it's funny how many people leave Sandpoint and come back, no matter when, whether they were born in the 70s, 90s, 80s, like all roads lead back to Sandpoint, it seems. It's because it's just such a wonderful place for all, for the reasons that there's a little bit of everything. I feel like you've got this really cute culture in the town, but if you want to be really rural, you can do that. If you can just drive down the road and still get to Coeur d'Alene if you need something even bigger. It's outdoorsy. It's got an art scene. I mean, it's just great.
I think we need to work on diversity quite a bit. I always joke that our diversity comes in the different number of kinds of Christian faith we have here.
There's some truth to that.
That's what we have here. But there really is, for such a small area, there really is a lot happening in our town. And then, of course, the natural resources are just amazing to have so nearby. And you're right, it's 45 minutes to go to Costco. You have a rotation agreement with your friends. Somebody goes, you get like everybody's list, and you come back with a minivan full of Costco stuff.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. Very efficient that way. So tell me about like what did your career look like when you came back to Sandpoint?
I went back to school and I became a nutritional therapist.
Oh.
So I opened a clinic in nutritional therapy, and all through, I was telling you before we started, I'm a writer. So all through all of this, I have written. And so I was writing for some different magazines and papers, sometimes about nutrition, but mostly about adventuring, and a lot of humor about raising a kid on my own. And I had bought another off-grid unfinished property that I was trying to manage myself way out there, which was part of the whole adventure. So I came here, I went back to school, I had a clinic in town, and I specialized in like disease processes that had to do with typically a traumatic past. So there's a lot of evidence to suggest that trauma promotes inflammation, autoimmune diseases as a result of that, and or bad behaviors, coping mechanisms. I shouldn't say bad behaviors, coping mechanisms for those who really had a tough hand dealt to them in life, and so maybe I always joke that for men, it's like porn and frozen burritos. And then for women, it's shopping and cupcakes. And of course, sometimes, heroin was in there. So I worked with people who had usually a team of specialists working with them.
Okay.
And I handled the nutrition and the behavioral component from a trauma-informed perspective.
Okay.
And so I did that, worked with their practitioners, so their prescribing physician or psychiatric nurse practitioner, and their therapist. And Freya, the brown dog, helped as well, of course. And about 2 years ago, I handed over my practice to a protege and went to full-time writing because my writing was kind of growing and growing. And I'm the parent of an ADHD trans queer kid who's a teenager. And I was like, oh, I need to launch this kid into college, which is happening in a week.
Oh.
And so I just decided, yeah, I know. Your time will come soon.
I know. Faster than I want it to.
Yeah. So that is a long answer to.
No. And so that was the dream, I suppose, right? To do writing full time, really. Was it a dream realized then? For most people who write, they want to do it full time if they can.
Yeah. And to be able to feed themselves.
Right.
Absolutely. I have always loved writing and storytelling. Even, when I was young and homeschooled, I would get in trouble for not doing my other chores, and I would write sentences. So I joke that, from a young age, I was pretty trained in the whole how to structure a sentence. And getting gifts like typewriters were the best thing ever. And being homeschooled meant that really I just was given a library card. And my parents were busy building a house and trying to survive. So we were sort of self-schooled. And writing was my life all along. And so it's been really wonderful to be in that journey and morphing like in my commitment to service of others, writing and storytelling and sharing very raw about things in life. Having a trans queer kid. I wrote very publicly about, I would say, I don't want to say horrific, but I had a miscarriage that was really hard. They're all hard. So that's just a reality of it. We don't write about those things. And then I also teach writing to try to get others to find their voice and share their story, because I feel like that is how we create community and see the connection that we have in humanity with perfect strangers who we maybe have many differences with as well. So that's been such a rewarding journey in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Like the arts are how we can find our common humanity. Absolutely. And did you, because if I didn't know what I knew coming into this interview, I would have thought you would have been involved with like one of the outdoorsy nonprofits, like Friends of Scotchman Peaks or something like that. Did you do any nonprofit work before what you do now?
That's such a good question. I know. There's people are so varied, right? When I lived in Germany, I was the president of an outdoor Waldorf-based school.
Oh.
And boy, those are some hardy kids. My poor child had just come from India and had been so used to very warm temperatures, and it was winter, and they were outside literally outside all day. Boy, that was an adventure for that kid. So I definitely am, I would say, pretty nature-based. I have been the president of the Waldorf School in Sandpoint on their board for a long time, largely because of how they connect humans to the process of ecology and the environment and agriculture and the arts, language, and community. Yeah. So I've been, my child is a Waldorf kid, and I've been on the board for an eternity. I've been on the board for a long time. I'm not the president now, but now I'm on the board of the Sandpoint Alliance For Equality. So I think it still aligns with themes of things like accessibility for everyone in nature.
Yeah. I can definitely see the connection there. And was it your child that was the inspiration for you to get involved with S.A.F.E, or were you involved before that, or what was the catalyst for you to move to a new board?
Yeah, I think I have a one board at a time rule. And
You're one of those people who'd be on like 5 boards if you were left to your own devices.
Yeah. I have to check in with my husband sometimes, and I don't even know why, because he's a total enabler when it comes to me doing more volunteer work. So last year, during pre-election, Andrea Marcocchio had asked me, like, oh, would you be interested in being involved in this? And I said, I'm on a board. It's really important work. And I'm happy to consult, especially as a writer, and knowing the other kind of board work that I do, but I can't do more. And then the elections happened, and I really felt like there's going to be an extreme and growing need for this kind of work, and that it needs to be grassroots work. And I have written about, my child coming out in the back seat of my Subaru. I'm like looking in my rear view mirror, and my kid's like, I'm going to be a boy now. And I'm like, you traitor. Like, you just joined the patriarchy like that? I just raised you to be this like empowered woman, and you're changing teams. And it's of course not about that, but who knows what it's about. It's a complex issue for everyone and very individual. And I think that it's not that I'm an activist for my child's benefit, but I also see, I'm the safe house for a lot of teenagers, and there's so much dissonance within the community, especially for trans queer families or trans queer children in families that maybe they were raised in a different value system, and they don't have a place to go and talk about whatever their process is, and whether their process is a phase or not, whether it's just exploring different identities, or they have mental health issues surrounding them about these concerns or their experience, and they can't communicate with their families. And then their families also, maybe they have a really Catholic set of parents who are just terrified of this experience of their child, and they don't know how to handle it. And trying to reconcile their faith and their value systems with what their kid is experiencing, and how that can create like a loss of their most safe community, which would be family.
Yeah. And
so I think that there was my exposure to these teenagers who I don't know any of their real names. They all have different names at my house, and they have different pronouns at my house. And recognizing they have almost like a split personality existence, and that their primary source of safety and reliability in most cases is their families, but there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And I feel really called within our community and within family dynamics to bridge that gap and to find resources and facilitate conversations where people who have like fear of offending people, fear of going to hell, fear of whatever their fears are, or fear of the unknown, to come together and talk from a place of curiosity, what we often call a spirit of inquiry in Waldorf language, and to come to understanding and acceptance, and primarily for safety. That's a real concern for the trans queer community and the LGBTQ community, that safety is not only a guarantee, but it's pretty unavailable if you want to live in an out life. And so I think there are many different causes that need to be addressed and are worthy. I make fun of vegans all the time, but I'm really glad they're out there trying to be vegans and teaching us about animal rights and humane animal care. And I'm glad we have natural health care practitioners focusing on those things. I'm glad people are picketing against kings. I feel like we all need to find the thing that calls to us, and I bet it'll change. At some point, this is the board that I'm on. Yeah, and it feels really relevant right now. It'll be interesting to see, what feels really relevant in a decade or 5 years.
Yeah. Stuff can change pretty quick. As like, I feel like the pandemic was the biggest thing where it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, life just did a 180. So you never know, to your point, what your passion, interest, or what you just see as an issue that needs addressing. And in the blink of an eye, it could change, things that people talk about now. No one was really like talking about, there was subsets of people that would talk about vaccines, right? But now it's something that everyone talks about, even now after COVID. Like that just totally changed culture in like a very interesting ways. So what is it? Can you talk more about S.A.F.E and like what are, as an org, you've kind of talked about what your goals are and what your role is specifically, I think, within that community. Is that also what the organization's role is, like bridging the gap with communication and things like that? Or is there stuff that you kind of do personally, and then where does that bleed into what the organization is trying to do? Did I articulate that?
Yeah, that was really articulate. I don't know if I can answer it. There were a lot of parts to it. Let me see what I can come up with.
Okay.
I should have our mission memorized because I wrote it with the team. I don't, but
most people don't.
They don't,
or
they're
reading it unless it's like
I didn't
one
even bring
sentence.
notes. Yeah, it is one sentence. A good mission should be.
Yeah.
We are really dedicated to dismantling hostility and increasing inclusion and helping, like promoting equity and safety for everyone throughout Idaho. And so Sandpoint Alliance for Equality is just that. Like, it is equality for everyone. And that means that people have a right to express themselves and they have a right to marry who they want to marry and to live not in fear. They have a right to privacy. They have a right to, these are, values that I hold and values that the group holds, but maybe not all Idahoans hold. They have a right to decide with their families and their medical providers what is appropriate care for them. And so those are the things that we're trying to create sort of on a broader spectrum. We're not trying to create, we're not trying to provide care for that. What we are trying to do is resource people. The thing that we see a gap for in our community is we don't have queer culture here, and it's unsafe for people to be out. We don't have things like we have the Pride Festival, right? So like that's it, and it's fantastic. And I'm going to back up a little bit because that happened 5 years ago. The very first one happened, and it was this little tiny group of a couple hundred people. And this year, it's 2,400 people came, and we had something like 35 resource booths.
Is that the biggest one yet? It's grown every year.
Yeah, and it's the largest one in north of Boise.
Okay.
And so we form allyship and relationships with other organizations in the community and beyond to kind of like celebrate our queer community members, but also resource them. And a lot of that has to do with mental health. It has to do with reproductive rights for women. In particular, everybody is deserving of reproductive rights. And who are friendly and safe organizations in the community, like the church. Is it the Methodist Church? The Lutheran Church? Which one is it? On Cedar Street. They always come on Cedar Street and Boyer. They always come and are so inviting to the youth. And we want teenagers to have safe places to gather and just be teenagers, but also be queer and okay if that's it. So our organization is about helping people understand their rights right now as they change, informing them of what they are, providing safe resources for youth in particular and adults, connecting with mental health resources where necessary. We also are involved in like equal housing. We want everyone to have an opportunity for housing and affordable housing, leadership roles for queer community members, artistic opportunities for queer artists and creators, and on and on.
So would someone basically approach you and say, hey, I'm having a mental health crisis, or I'm an artist, or I'm a this, and then you would try to say, okay, who can we connect you with? Is that kind of what you're saying? You're the connector?
Yeah. And we also are the provider of like safe spaces. So we have an open mic program that runs and people can come to that. We don't have our fall programming for the open mic yet this fall, but there we uplift queer artists or anyone who has a story to tell. Maybe it's a straight, white, cisgendered Christian mom who's like, I need to read a poem about how messed up I feel about all of this. Like, we want to have open spaces for everybody's voice so that we can share our experiences, as long as they're affirming and not hate-filled and not violent. And so some of it is the events and the space and the programming that we create for people who are queer to come to. And your example of like a mental health crisis, we partner with other organizations that offer that. So we would say like, okay, we've got, if you have mental illness, we've got NAMI Far North. They do amazing things in the community.
It's funny. She was just Dawn was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and the Waldorf ladies, I didn't mention it, were on the podcast maybe 2 months ago. So everybody you're like
great.
connected to.
I love this town. I love this town. And then of course, Justine Murray with the Ethan Murray Fund. They're doing incredible things in our community and beyond. So it might be that we resource out to those people and say like, oh yes, this is a safe place for you to go to. Or let's say a trans queer kid needs mental health support or medical support. And I'm not saying what that is, like if they need hormones, because that's not allowed now in our state. However, we might be able to say, these medical facilities have providers that will really get you the care that you need and not, not promote conversion therapy.
Okay. So a lot of connecting going on. You did mention programming is coming in the fall.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about any, everybody knows the Pride Festival, but
Pride Festival,
you're more than that. You have other programming besides that. That's
Yeah.
once a year. So what other things are you doing throughout the year?
We have some exciting stuff. We just hired a part-time consultant to help us design and launch some programming.
Okay.
So we're in the process of deciding what does the community want the most. A couple of things that we've done so far that have been really well received and will bring back in the fall are the open mic nights. We've done rights and resistance meetings every month in the winter and the early spring, where we have the community come in and we say, like, we have a topic, so it might be, what are our rights? What are your medical rights now? What are your rights with name changing or pronouns right now, if that's the issue? We partner a lot with Pro Voice Project as well. So what are your reproductive health care rights? And help people just have clarity, like know what their rights are and know how to resource themselves. And then we also ask in those rights and resistance things like, what do you guys need? And what came back was a resounding cry for more skills in communication, which is wonderful because communication is necessary to bridge that gap. And so we brought in Braver Angels, which specializes in red and blue conversations.
I love Braver Angels, and I've never heard somebody in this town mention Braver Angels.
So we had them here.
Okay,
they
wow.
Came, we had 85 people show up and do their training. I think it was the April meeting.
Oh, wow.
Might have been April meeting.
Completely missed that one.
And then that was a really great introduction, and enough so that when we did Pride, we turned it into a 3-day event this year. And the first day was workshops, and I led a communications workshop with Dr. Michael Welp. And we had 2 different communications workshops, and I can't remember their titles, but the first one was really about like looking at your skills in communication and how to leverage them effectively and like be a really good listener so that you could affirm people and connect with them. And then the second workshop was a values-based workshop on understanding perspective of others, which was just delightful because people were so challenged in looking at the opposite side and saying, like, if we would ask, like, what do you think the opposite's values are that inform their belief? And it was so hard for people to go like, oh, they don't have any values. They would just get stuck. And being able to demonstrate that both sides, when you have these sort of these really divisive topics, both sides have really life experiences, religious values, other values that inform those beliefs, and showing the humanity in between and bringing them together. So that's a workshop that those went so well, along with a storytelling workshop, and we had a legal rights workshop that we will continue. And I think that we might do like quarterly community workshops. And then, of course, because I'm a fan of the arts, I'm working on developing a program to offer an annual retreat for artists here, where we can scholarship in some. Anybody can participate, but of course, we're going to prioritize teachers and facilitators in the queer community, and ideally local, and then bringing in artists from all over who can participate. A lot of times, those workshops are cost prohibitive, and so we want to make them accessible.
Yeah.
And then I think we're going to start teen game night. We had a great turning out at Pride on, I think it was during Pride Festival. It might have been the night before. I can't remember. It was probably on Friday night. And so many kids came and played games. And it's interesting because we complain now like the youth is not getting involved in activism. They just want to be kids, And if we're like, oh, come to the queer club, they're like, we don't want to go do work. We want to come play. And so we heard that from them, and just wanted to make safe spaces for them to be kids and be whatever they want to be in that space and just feel safe.
Yeah.
Well,
cool. There's a lot of new stuff coming.
Yeah.
A lot of big developments. And we joked before the camera started rolling, like the biggest needs that everybody has is money and volunteers. Does that ring true for this? Or like if someone's listening and they're compelled to get involved some way, what would you advise?
Call us. We have had a humbling amount of volunteer support. That has been really amazing. I mean, we have over, I think, 90 volunteers to pull off Pride. And some of those jobs are like a full-time job for a while. Especially like our safety coordinators and our volunteer coordinators have big jobs. And it's really neat to see like how many people come and do volunteer shifts just a couple of hours. And I kind of love that because we have a lot of opportunity for people who are just like, I have 2 hours, or people who maybe we have some older citizens who come and they need a seated job, and we're like, great, take tickets. It's really nice to see that it's available and accessible to volunteer pretty much anywhere, in like at any point you are in your life, whether you're a young parent or an older person, or maybe you have a disability. We have something that you can do. And I think that's really lent to our growth of volunteerism. We would love a broader board.
Okay.
That would be really wonderful. And it's a neat group. Having worked on several boards, I am very much enjoying the, I want to say like the intellectual development that's happening in this board. There's a lot of thinking and cross-pollination, and we get to work with so many other incredible organizations in the community that it feels very challenging to, like, personally to my growth. I'm learning so much, and that is that's a really neat way to be able to. It's almost like getting a bunch of training as a volunteer.
Yeah.
So if people like that's a thing to know, is that it's a really competent group of people right now. And I realize I am talking about myself.
Led by the most competent person.
Not the most competent, but definitely if you need some writing skills, they're there. And the other challenge with, another thing we've been talking about is programming that's based on people who want to do things. So I think we just pegged somebody to volunteer for Pride Outside programming. So somebody to run an outdoor program where we have, like at the Pride Festival, we had a transparency hike that I led for parents to come and just be like, oh my God, my kid is trans. What do I do? And we're like, there's nothing wrong you can say here. Let's just talk about the things and have that conversation. And then we also had a bike ride. That was, I think it was called Let's Be Friends, because they all have a sense of humor. So we're going to try to get some more programming that makes it safe for queer people to be outside. And then we're finding volunteers who are like, I would be so excited to do that thing. So work for people that's close to their heart really helps gain volunteers. And they often are really good at like finding friends to help volunteer with them. Funding has been interesting. The political climate has everybody's financial sphincters tight. right now.
I mean, I think mine is for sure.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
personally, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
everybody is just sort of like, what's going to happen?
Yep.
The other thing that is true is that there is a lot more asking. And so I think that organizations are having to look and should be doing this. Or maybe they haven't had to do it before, but let's say organizations who are managing philanthropic funds really need to look at what their core mission is and be clear about that, so just those groups are spending the time and energy to write grants, and getting an amount of money back that is usable. It's not, there are organizations who are like, oh, we donated to 50, like a philanthropic organization or grant funding organization that's like, we donated to 50 different organizations, and they get to put all those logos on their website, and they all got $350.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even pay for the time it takes to write
the
a grant.
Yeah.
So I think it would really help, and now there's a necessity for companies who before could be like, oh, we have all this money, somebody ask us for it, now need to say, this is what we really want to support, and be clear about that, so that we can be more efficient in going and applying for those grants and using them to support causes that are in alignment with their own values and missions. So I think that would help, but we don't have a lot of power there because we're, at the bottom of that, we can't say totem pole. Edit that out later. That barrel. We're at the bottom of that barrel. And so we are probably really going to be looking more at finding individuals and doing a lot more fundraising through individual relationship management.
Yeah.
And there are those people out there, and what I love about that is that it connects us more closely to our community, because we can hear what their concerns are, what matters to them. They have more impact on shaping our programming. Like if somebody came to us and said, I really want safe places and representation in the outdoors for queer people, and I have money, then we would be like, great, we will run that program. That is in alignment with our mission too.
Yeah.
And I love that about our town, is there is a lot of that available. S.A.F.E itself is a new organization. People have seen us as Pride up until last year, when we formally announced that we would be safe and applying for 501c3. We function under an umbrella organization now because our 501c3 is being processed. Okay. They said 6 weeks, I think, in the beginning, and now it's 191 days.
I get it. I don't think everyone gets it. They understand. You guys are on your way, or basically a legit.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. We are legit because we have a sponsor. But it doesn't, that helps us in some aspects. The challenge still, I think, is in the culture of fundraising through grants and understanding that pipeline. For example, like if we don't have money to run programming, then we can't say we do these things that would qualify us for more grants, right? So
it's like you got to have experience to get the job, but I need a job to get experience.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think that that's a pretty normal process. And I think people are really, you, mother of four, like you don't have that much capacity to volunteer. And people are raising their families and trying to get by. And now we all have to grow gardens and have our own chickens because we can't afford eggs. So like, I think that makes it harder to come out and like build a grassroots movement. But people have done it in times of war.
Yeah, worse times than this. Yeah, times of war, times of depression, times of. I wasn't alive during the Great Depression, but I was alive during 2008 when that I remember what that felt like, Yeah. I was young, and I remember my parents like sitting us down and being like, things are going to be a little tighter.
Yeah.
Around here. You're not getting a sweatshirt for every sport and things like that, but we still were a part of the community. You maybe just got a little choosier about where you did, spend your time and volunteer. Right. So the people are still have big hearts.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, they do. This town in particular is pretty amazing what people can manifest here. I always think of like KLT, who's probably been on your show, Katie Cox, and that
Oh,
crew.
yes,
with
yes.
Nixie
She
Land
has,
Trust.
yes. Mm-hmm.
She and I get to work with her a lot because she's been on the Waldorf board as well.
Okay.
And that organization is such a leader in how to manifest momentum in a community for issues that matter to the community, and also bridging the gap. And so I feel like sometimes when I'm like, I'm spinning my wheels and I'm not getting any traction, I look to what they've been able to achieve in the last few years, and it's really remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inspiring nonprofits around here, that's for sure, and leaders of said nonprofits doing wonderful things, which is why it's like so fun to work here at the EnVision Center and get to meet all of you and see how all these different connections are being, like, I wouldn't have necessarily guessed that you would have had that close of a relationship with Katie Cox, but then you also mentioned Dawn, and you also mentioned Janine, and like Waldorf comes up. It's just so fun the way everything's interwoven, and that's what we hope to achieve at the EnVision Center, is just bring more nonprofits who aren't competing against each other, but
Right,
supporting
we're all
each
competing
other
against each
and
other 'cause
lifting
we
each
need
other
money.
Right, but
But that's not true. That's actually, it's interesting because I believe, and I'm a real like optimistic abundance thinker, and I find that like you could be doing similar things different, like but differently, and then appeal to a different fundraising group. When I was practicing nutritionist, one of my dear friends is also a nutritionist in town, and we went to the same school. We have very similar backgrounds. But we had just slightly different takes on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I thought about changing my pricing or taking some new continuing ed, we'd go out to coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the competing practitioners in town at the
Yeah.
time. And I'd be like, all right, what do you think about this pricing model? And what kind of clients do you want? And she'd be like, oh, she's super smart, loves to nerd out on hormones. And we'd be like, I want all the hormones, and I want all like this disease process. And I would be like, give me your most messed up people. I want the messed up people. Then she'd be like, oh, good, because that's not my group. That's not where I want to shine. And we both grew practices from nothing to really successful large practices, and served the community, because some people preferred how she operated and some people preferred how I operated. And so I think that I don't see a lot of cannibalism here in that sense of nonprofits competing. And I think that especially some established nonprofits are really good also at supporting new ones and saying, like, how can we support this? This is an alignment, and maybe it takes a need that the community has off our plate that we haven't been able to serve. So my hope is that we just continue to grow, and God, wouldn't it be nice if we needed less of the nonprofits someday?
Yeah, sometimes I will ask folks, like, what would it take for your nonprofit to close?
Yeah.
You know, that's like, when do you close your doors and say mission accomplished? I think that's a great question that every
when it's
nonprofit
safe.
should but like, well, what does that mean? What does even safe mean? Does it mean this many crimes per hate crimes per capita, or it has to be this really low number? What does that mean exactly? Even that you could put some objective kind of numbers on. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but and sometimes it's really tough to answer. You had an answer right away, right? But sometimes you ask people that and they're like, yeah, when would our cancer is cured? Maybe that's when you close your doors. Or everyone, the amount of homeless people in the community is only 1% or something. I don't know what's reasonable at all, but
that's that's like the course of humanity. One problem is solved and then another becomes apparent. So maybe we just shift our resources to that. So when you say, like, when cancer is cured, my mind goes to, oh my God, there's so many people who are traumatized and in recovery. We need a nonprofit to take care of them and to heal their families' hearts.
Yeah.
Like, I think that suffering is part of the human process, and nonprofits pretty much are there to try to reduce that for a particular population. I don't think that we're not going to need nonprofits.
Well, yeah. I mean, there will
Yeah.
always be a need for nonprofits.
Yeah.
It's just where will those needs be the highest? But yeah, did we touch everything that we needed to get, in order to inform our audience about what it is that your organization does, your goals and your needs? This felt like a very well-rounded conversation, but maybe we missed something that you would want to plug.
Let's see. I'm not much of a plugger. I will say that I was just talking to Dawn at NAMI yesterday. We had a meeting because they're doing Mental Health Week. Did you guys get to talk about that?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so we're going to support them in the Mental Health Week. It's starting at Matchwood. The walk starts at
Yep.
Matchwood on October 4th. I think I'm doing a speech or a storytelling event in the morning before the walk begins. And I hear the mayor's going to be there too, which will be really great. It's nice to see our public officials coming and supporting issues that are at the heart of our community, like mental health is definitely there. So that's a thing that S.A.F.E is getting involved in. And then I would say watch the calendar because we should be, I think our meeting is in 2 weeks to decide on our programming, and then we get to launch all of our fall programming and probably our fall and winter programming. So we're really excited about that. And
Well, great. Yep. People should totally check out the calendar, check out the website. We'll have that linked in the stuff that we share out about this conversation. Amy, this has been really fun. This is like
Thanks for
a great,
having us.
probably a top 5 conversation for me. It was just kind of well-rounded, and we talked about a lot
Top
of different
5?
stuff. Yeah.
If I could swear more,
then it would be number 1.
Yeah.
But we keep it family friendly around here. So just thank you for coming on and giving us the time.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. For more information, you can go to crecidaho.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again soon.